pretty much use the capacity.
Right.
Unless you move, you might move the preschool out, but that might free up 1 or 2 rooms, but still, in shifting that around. So out of all of those different grade reorganizations, that was probably the only one that with some even more work, it might end up with some level of savings, but not tremendous. So the question is, how long would you want to be in that scenario? Would you want to have a middle school, no longer a middle school that's 6, 7, and 8, it would be a 7 and 8 junior high, 2 years, and it just wouldn't make sense to keep the 6th grade in the elementary for 1 or 2 years and then bring them back and, try to recreate the middle school.
There's more than just moving the 6th grade. Doesn't that kind of change the way you teach, organize? I mean, you haven't had 6th grades in those schools, so you have to change some
Yeah,
level of
curriculum.
structure, or curriculum has to be
Even the
different.
scheduling,
Yes.
how you rotate them through a cafeteria in art, music, and gym leads up
I don't see
all
how you do
those
that.
rotations. Whereas preschool doesn't necessarily go to the cafeteria and gym.
So my feeling is this: on the optimistic side, I'm feeling that we're going to get enough money to cover 5, 6, and 7 from somewhere, state, federal. Well, maybe not, but close.
Yeah. And then
But there's 1 through 15, eliminating 5, 6, and 7, and as before Jerry came in, a lot of it is going to depend on our negotiations with teachers, and we're just starting. But I don't know, David, because there probably aren't any. It probably doesn't make sense to say take 5, 6, and 7 off the table and go back and find another $450,000 in cuts, because I don't know where you'd find those.
It isn't there, you can't find it,
Right.
it isn't there.
I might ask the superintendent if he could begin to prioritize level 2, so that we have a better idea when it comes down to things like paraprofessionals and custodials and technology support. See if he's in agreement that the 3 elementary teachers are really on the table, or some classes can be merged.
And I also know, I've taken a great deal of heat on this, but in terms of the athletic program, it's my belief that when you start making it 100% supported by fees, you start to dismantle
Yeah.
the athletic program.
Yeah.
And I see what's happening at Hamilton Wenham, where they have no more freshman program, which means that if a kid goes out for freshman basketball, there is no freshman basketball. So instead of 15 kids playing basketball, 3 make JV, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the other kids are done. There's no more freshman teams at Hamilton Wenham, and you're talking about a wealthy district that's a lot more wealthy than North Reading, that's for sure. Their hockey team's gone too, right? They have a co-op hockey team because of the cost. I think hockey was like $1,200 or something, and that went by the boards. So I'm not saying I wouldn't support that, but I'm saying supporting that is saying athletics is going to be severely diminished
Yeah.
moving forward, interscholastic athletics.
With some of the items in level 2, I'd be curious to see if we had a level 2 A and B. Can we really eliminate building curriculum leadership? Is there another plan or another way that we would provide that? The music teacher, putting jazz back into the high school schedule, I don't want to do that, but that's more palatable than some of the other items in level 2. So, but I agree, I'm holding out on the athletics as well. I don't want us to go to 100% user fee, because then we'll have to break it down by cost, and kids will not be able to just participate because they can't spend $1,000 to run track. I mean, it just.
Well, if they play 3 sports, they're going to end up spending $2,000 or $3,000 a
They
year.
won't be able to play.
Right.
And there are kids that walk away from participating in sports with life lessons that they would never get in the classroom. That for that kid is just as important.
So would our goal be to take a vote at the official budget hearing on the 9th? Does that, I think that makes sense, right? On a
Unless
budget?
the timetable changes, that would have to be our present goal.
And then that gives us, we have the two forums, the one tomorrow and the one next week, where we can get resident input.
I mean, you basically, at this point, have agreed that it's the level services budget minus the level 1 cuts.
Right.
Right.
So
And that is,
the budget recap.
So we're at that 1,062,000,
Yeah,
yes.
so, but our budget then.
It's 22,681,490 right now.
No,
Oh, no, wait.
is 24, it's 24.
I'm not sure what your question
I
is.
want to see, if we just stop now with the level 1 reductions, you would take the 24,
118.
118,429
Subtract
minus
374,878.
374, and that would be right tonight.
23,743,551.
That would, yeah,
what's that
It's
represent?
1,062.
that's your number right now.
Okay.
So let me repeat it. It's taking the original level services budget of 24,118,429 and subtracting the level 1 cuts of 374,878.
23,743,551.
But again, based on what we know or believe to know what the available funds are, still leaves just slightly over $1 million to be found.
Found or cut
Right,
before that,
Found or
before
cut.
we vote on the 9th.
right. And so the unknown factors that go into that equation include negotiations and wage freeze, step freezes, health insurance,
Right.
unknowns, although some of the health insurance is known because it's pretty much known to be a 6.4% increase on the current plan. I actually don't know the savings that will be generated with the change in, say, the co-pays, but I wanted to say it was around another 300,000 or so but that would be split
Right.
possibly. And we don't know about the stimulus plan.
Right. Or the room and meals tax.
Oh, the governor's.
Right, the governor's.
Exactly.
So David, here's my question. Not speaking directly about negotiations, but we decide on a budget number, whatever it is. Say we end up deciding, okay, the budget is 22,669,490. We negotiate with the teachers, whatever agreement we come to with the teachers, whether it's, if it's, they agree to a freeze, then there's no increase there. If they don't agree to a freeze and we agree to whatever percent in steps, that's gonna come out of that budget, which will
We
mean.
still have a salary pool that's factored in there, right?
No, the salary pool isn't really factored into that. The salary pool is factored into the 24,118 number. But if you get down to the 22,669 number, the salary pool is figured in there, but it would be more layoffs or more positions cut, because this salary pool and step money is figured into the 24,118 budget, right?
Right, it's in there.
But not if you get down to 22,669, is it still in there?
Yes.
Yes, it's in there, it's just, it would just be reflective of, you're right.
You'd have to lay
reduce
off
Right,
positions
we'd have to
because
reduce
the
more
salary
positions, right,
person-
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what we said earlier, you have to reduce
Yeah.
more positions to get that salary.
Have we ruled out completely, coming up with a budget number that exceeds our so-called appropriation
No,
from the
we
town?
have not.
Okay,
No.
because I'm not privy to what's going on at the finance planning
Yeah.
team meetings, but I don't know what it's been agreed to.
No, we
But
We
if it
haven't
were a
really-
question of preserving 5, 6, and 7 classroom teachers, there's a possibility then that we would have a number that might exceed what would be considered our
Yes.
Right.
share, so to speak.
Yep.
Okay.
Right. We did talk before you came in, Cliff raised the issue of where does the percentage breakdown come from? Where next year it's gonna be 66-34, which I
Okay.
believe is what it is this year.
Yeah.
And Maureen mentioned that 15 years ago, it was 60-40.
Right.
So it has grown 10% over 15 years, but I don't think it's kept up with our enrollment increase over 15 years, for sure. We probably have 900 to 1,000 more students than we had 15
Yeah,
years ago.
I think so.
Maybe 60% more students.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we do, I mean,
Right, we
we
do.
were at about
Yeah.
1850.
Right, we're at
in the early
2850
90s,
now.
and we're 2850 now,
Right.
so, yeah.
But I do think that's a good point that Jerry makes, it. You know, if there is no more revenue coming in, you know, I would not hesitate to try to find or request or find $450,000 more just to keep 5, 6, and 7 intact.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any place else we can cut. I know there isn't.
There,
I just don't know where.
we would have found it years ago.
Right. And I'm not even gonna say the number, but as Cliff well knows, and as everybody well knows where we stand in the state, when you're that low, there's not a lot to cut, there's no fat. If we were number 1 in the state, if we were spending $23,000 per student like Cambridge, we might have some fat.
That 16 is based on 2007
Right,
data.
we don't know what 2008 shows.
2008, remember, we were considerably lower.
Right, we don't know what that shows, right, exactly, because we cut back in
And
2008.
so we may very well be number 1 or number 2 with the state. It's hard to say when the 2008 numbers come out.
I just think that in times like this, you look at stabilization funds and you tap into them. And I would never say that about an operating budget, but look at the economic crisis that the world is in. And if we need a year until things get in better shape, then that's why you have a reserve account, to get by. When your roof is leaking, you get it fixed.
And the argument from the finance committee, and I don't understand it well enough, is if you reduce the stabilization fund, it increases how much you have to pay to borrow,
You could
correct?
risk
Or
your
it reduces
bond
your bond
rating.
rating, right.
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 But, you know, sometimes you have to look at how much, because it's like a tax charge, it's a range. So sometimes you get close to the range without moving out of it.
And I think you're right, except the issue with that, again, which we've always discussed, is that money's not there next year, right?
Right, but we don't know, if stimulus money comes down in 6 months from now, are we gonna say, great,
Right.
gee, we should have kept those teachers? You know, I'd rather say, great, replenish the stabilization account.
The fear of the stimulus money too is like we've seen in the past with the grants for police officers, and when those grants run out, either the town comes up with the money or the police officers are gone, the positions are gone.
We've never gone through something like this before, so no one really knows
Right.
what to do.
You know, I understand what you're saying about 5, 6, and 7 on teachers, but it would be, to not talk about, or to put priorities on any of these would be extremely difficult. I mean, not to have the I don't know how you run, I just don't know how you run the system without that kind of support. It's not just the classroom teachers.
Well, I think that's what Maureen asked you to do, was to try to prioritize
Could you group
the
them?
remainder, or at least group them into some
A and
levels.
B.
Well,
Because you
originally it was
have
level
that.
1 and level 2.
Yeah.
Well, David, I can tell you when you don't have technology support, what happens. When your network goes down, it's gonna be down for a long time. I mean, but I guess I'm looking at what has the most impact day-to-day on kids in the schools.
I mean, if you came back and said it was
Well, I know.
3 high school teachers and 2 elementary, so that you could save the technology, I
Or
mean, you
2
can
high
split them
school,
up.
1.
Right.
You have a better sense of the programs that will be eliminated, and is that an elective with 20 kids or an elective with 30 kids? Where would we put them?
And I know at the middle school, those 2 teachers were added to increase instruction in literacy reading, correct? So that was an increase in service this year. Now,